This is the sediment basin at the end of the Mordialloc settlement drain, the supplier of all the sand that's been haunting the creek for many, many years. Back in 2010, the boats were beached in and around Lambert Island. It was obvious that work needed to be done. Public rallies were held, political elections changed, and funds were eventually made available. Today I want to talk to you about the important role that the sediment basin plays in keeping the creek free of sediments. In 2011, in June, $6 million was allocated to start cleaning out the Mordialloc Creek. Heavy equipment was brought in. You can see how it's dug out there and transferred across to the pier, where it was then treated with chemicals and taken away. More heavy equipment arrived, lots of it. Machines to drive posts in, sheet piling equipment, machines to remove the posts. This near map view shows the impact around Lambert Island, where all the boats were removed to accommodate all these changes and works that needed to be done. We now move across to Attenborough Park, where a large concrete pad at a cost, I believe, of about $200,000 had been installed for all the heavy work. In my opinion, we should have retained this pad with community use and kept it for the next 100 years. We need to service the creek in this area. We now start to move up to the sediment basin at the end of the settlement drain, one of the most important tools in keeping the creek healthy. Note the large stone wall and the arid area on the right. This drain came to be because of flooding in the Dandenong Valley. This is Boundary Road in 1965 when there were big floods. The Tri-Steel building is now replaced with a lunch shop. In the next slide, we see this is the very commencement of the settlement drain at Lower Dandenong Road in 1971. Works commenced, carried on for about 2 years, and were completed, I think, about late 1973. In this more recent near map view, you can see how efficiently the sediment basin works. It collects the sand, but I assert Melbourne Water have been negligent and not emptied and cleared this sediment basin frequently enough. Consequently, the creek got strangled with constant sands from the Heatherton area flowing over the boulders and into the main creek. After pressing Melbourne Water to attend to this area, they arrived on the 30th of September and commenced work at the site. 30th of September 2019. We've now got equipment at the sediment basin. Currently they're pumping all the water out of the sediment basin. And it will be really good to see what they get stuck into. Swing around to the Mordialloc Creek. Looks like we've got a fridge or a big plastic box coming down there. If there's no rain for the next few days, this should be good. On a daily basis, I came down to film at low tide and watch the operation and how they handled it. They had in operation 2 long-reach Cabelco excavators and a great little mud running truck. Over the next 2 weeks, they continued with this operation, and I estimate they must have removed 1,000 cubic metres. I believe that this sediment basin had been saturated for many years, and consequently any sediment carried down this concrete speedway had no alternative other than to flow over the top of the sediment basin, through the rocks, and constantly feed into the creek. You can notice here that they have now put as much sediment along the bank of the creek as they can, that they've had to use the other compound area to commence filling that with mud as well. That area where the little work machine is now had a massive amount of mud put into it by the end of the dredging. This is a few days later. Still going, getting towards the end. Sediment basin appears to have been completely emptied and finished yesterday. We have now come towards the end of the project. The equipment is being packed up. The trucks will have to come and get the sand over the next few days. This little area is all they could dig out at the end of the bank. And then a few days later, the sand has all been removed, the sediment, the grounds have been tidied up, and the workers have returned to repair the fence, and the public are once again walking through this area. If we move forward 100 metres along the side of the sediment basin, it brings us to the end of the settlement drain. This is the concrete section from Lower Dandenong Road to the basin. In January of 2020, we had successive storms, bad storms, that brought all this rubbish through. This is indicative of the volume of items that flow down this creek and down this slipway. Plastics, everything you can imagine. We now come to the most important part of the points that I'm trying to illustrate to people. I believe Melbourne Water have not been emptying this sediment basin as frequently as it should be done. It's been a battle to get them to do it this time. If you look through these years and consider that the dredging was done in 2011, 2012, and if you look back on the work that was done and the equipment that was needed to dredge the creek, you can appreciate how important it is that we remove the mud and get all the sediment out in the correct place that was designed to do that job. And that is right up here. Now, I'm looking in the future and hoping that Kingston and Dwelp can be the scrutineers. Keep an eye on this. You only need to look on Nearmap. The moment you see a white crown appearing, it is already too late. When you can see that clean sand on the top, you know that everything is being carried over the top, through the rocks, and into the drain, where you can see the pink cross on the left that builds up a little beach. A little bit further earlier back, you would have noticed that little beach has now been dug out and a few tyres remained in it. It is important to try to get the near map photos at low tide, which is what we've tried to do with these photos. What's pleasing to see in here, on the right hand side, there is a pink cross near the right hand margin. There is now a very, very vibrant waterways area there with a lot of wildlife and lots of snakes in summer. But if you look back at the earlier photo, the first one of the Sediment Basin, you will see it was a dead, terrible area. So Melbourne Water have done that very well, assisted with it. They mow their lawns very well, but we've got to get them to more frequently clean out this sediment basin to stop the sand going over this bank and then joining with the Mordialloc Creek that then, with the combined force of the waters, carries the sediment down into areas C, B and A, where it is very, very expensive to get it out. This area here plays a most important part in the health of the Mordialloc Creek, and I hope that Kingston and DELP will play a supportive role in the future with all funding and control over this area. This area is most important. I've not touched on the plastic and litter. I've focused mainly on the sediments within what I've been covering today. I suspect that in the last 7 years, since the dredging occurred, that this basin has been cleared and dredged one time. It would be great if Melbourne Water could bring forward their register of works and indicate to us how many times this has occurred. It's very important that we collect all the sediment east of the Boundary Road Bridge. It's very easy to view this area. You just walk onto the bridge. There's a wide footpath there, no real parking, just walk back to it. And you can look down at this little hole here and observe at low tide any time in the future. If we start seeing this to fill up again, you know there's problems. The sediment basin can be seen by just looking over a bit further. We are in the city of Kingston. Mordialloc Creek is a massive asset for this shire, and we're represented by Mr. Mark Dreyfus in Isaacs, our Premier Daniel Andrews, and local MP Tim Richardson. All are in the same team, yet the failure to keep the creek clear and clean has happened by all authorities under your charge since the creek was last dredged in 2012. Finding the money is a difficult thing. Each authority looks to the others or can't find a place to get rid of the mud. But if you can get a solution to get rid of the mud to tunnel under Melbourne, I see no reason why the mud can't go to the same place. It's only a matter of cost and the amount of treatment that had to be done as they did it last time on the creek. So I'm now looking to you guys to get the funding together to get something going on this creek, as what happened recently with Melbourne Water. Melbourne Water came good, and as you saw earlier in this, they got rid of all that mud out of that sediment basin. It's your time to do the creek again. Thanks, and I look forward to your help.